Jim Pfaff, former Chief of Staff on the Hill and President of the Conservative Caucus, joins us now. Jim, thank you for joining us again. What say you?
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that Democrats are standing up for the bureaucrats and the infrastructure of government that Americans so desperately hope that they'll stand up for. Their messaging is definitely going to fail. But what this argument centers around is the Budget Control Act of 1974. There's a more formal name there. I'm just being short.
Mm-hmm.
And what they are attempting to say is that Donald Trump has actually impounded funds, and that if a president attempts to do that, they must send what's called a special message to Congress, and they can only do so for 45 days. But first of all, if he were impounding funds, he may do so for up to 45 days, according to the 1974 Act. But even more so, there isn't an impoundment of funds. He is freezing any new contracts or negotiations or specific things of new money that was going out under already authorized programs until there is alignment with the president's policies. And he has a right to get his policies into how this money is spent out because Congress doesn't put any such type restraints on their spending. So there's nothing wrong about what he did at all. This judge is obviously siding with the deep state, I guess, if I want to put it that way, to stop Donald Trump from implementing the reforms that he was elected by the American people to do. By the way, this is going to be an even better process when Russell Vought becomes formally the chairman of the Office of Management of Budget. Russ, whom I know.
Once again, yes.
Yeah, once again, absolutely. I know Russ. He's a fantastic guy. I've known him for years. He did such a great job last time. This is going to be a great process moving forward. This is just the beginning salvo of what is a concerted effort to bring this government back into the hands of the American people instead of Washington bureaucrats.
And this was once a conversation relegated to the fringes of the libertarian movement. I mean, if you started talking about cutting the Fed, trimming down government in such dramatic ways, you were relegated to being a nut. But now it's within reach, it's feasible, and it's through an act as simple as freezing funds for 90 days. The panic around this, of course, is fairly predictable. What hasn't been predictable, though, is just how much has been done in a very short amount of time, how much overspending has been caught in just a span of a few days. Look at what DOGE uncovered. DOGE has uncovered the fact that we're spending in excess of $1 billion per day. We're saving that now with this freeze. And DOGE's mission is to trim down over $3 billion a day. That's their goal. And they're saying that's a pretty modest one.
It's quite modest. In fact, it won't make enough of a dent that we really need to make in this budget. By the way, what DOGE also found was that we were going to send $50 million of condoms to Gaza. Now that's absurd enough.
No, we talked about that earlier in the show.
Away.
Ridiculous.
No,
it's ridiculous. But it's a perfect illustration, Jem, of, and this is what I said earlier in the show, it's a perfect illustration of why Democrats and bureaucrats hate transparency. They can't stand transparency because with it, we see these kinds of ridiculous shenanigans that they try to pull over the taxpayer.
Well, and there was a report that in Gaza, they're using condoms and filling them with inert air or non-inert air, like hydrogen or whatever that can explode. They're using condoms for that. Listen, the absurdity of what we do in the federal government is profound. And by the way, I would love for all my libertarian friends who have told me all my years to stop messing around with the GOP. I want to throw up that Ron Paul with his hands in the air, it's happening GIF that is very popular because Ron was right all this time. Donald Trump is the most libertarian president that we've ever had in terms of his policy, small L libertarian, obviously. And this is a real hope and help for Americans whose money is taken away and used for the benefit of politicians and bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., in the town that has 6 of the 10 wealthiest counties in the country, by the way, where we don't do any business hardly. It's only business to support the government.
No, it's all funny
it's crazy
money stuff.
Oh, yeah. So I'm hopeful.
Now,
this is a good first step.
Watching the confirmation hearing earlier today with RFK Jr. sitting there and being grilled by Democrat lawmakers who have engaged in insider trading practices. These are people who have made a career out of being politicians and being paid off for being politicians on the back end. At least that's what we credibly suspect. They were all giving RFK Jr. grief over the bottom line of him picking this fight against Big Pharma and fighting for the cause, deeply unpopular cause amongst Big Pharma, of keeping chemicals out of our food. I mean, this is similar to what you opened with. The Democrats are doing themselves no favors by saying they're on the side of bureaucrats. They're on the side of Big Pharma wanting to include and ensure that food dyes are kept unnecessarily in our foods. So Democrats right now, rather than being introspective and figuring out how to recalibrate after the election, they seem to just be doubling down on all the wrong paths. Is this just a failure of leadership or a failure of vision?
Well, there is no leadership in the Democrat Party right now. I mentioned on Inauguration Day that you're not going to see Joe Biden in public again. First of all, it's too scary to put him in public, but no one wants him there anyway. So there's no opposition right now. There is no leader of the Democrat Party right now at all, anywhere to be found. And even the governor of the most populous state, California, Gavin Newsom, can't provide that role. There's nobody. So they are leaderless. But what's even worse is this party was given over to the radical AOC, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders wing of the party, which is intransigent. They are not people who can be taught when they fail. And they are dragging the Democrat Party further into the ground. I don't know how recoverable it is, certainly for the next 3 to 4 election cycles. We'll see. Maybe they'll come up with something this year. But they are ineffective.
Well, to your point about messaging, they seem to all, like the two figures you just named, they seem to be clinging on to this messaging around immigration, opposing Trump's mass deportations measures. What are you getting in terms of on the ground sentiment about Republicans pushing for mass deportations and how that is affecting the populace? How do the people feel about that based on some polls?
There's only one place I'm seeing any significant opposition, and that's on CNN or MSNBC, that no one's watching anymore because they don't believe him because they're all liars.
Talk to me about the measures that Trump has taken. He's offered to buy out federal workers with 7 months' pay in an effort to weed out the bureaucracy. You've been on the Hill for many years. You know how a lot of these people think and work and look at issues like this. How is that going to be received? Do you think bureaucrats will take the deal?
Well, the good news is there are a lot of people in the federal bureaucracy who are close enough to retirement age that they'll be eligible. The TSP plan allows federal employees to retire at 55, kind of like the DOD plan does.
Okay.
If you get 20 years of service in, you can get a significant pension. So I think you're going to see a lot of people on that top end say, okay, well, hey, this is a good time. I think I'll go now. And it's equal to the top 3 years, their top 3 years of salary. So whatever they're making now is pretty close to on whatever percent they've accrued that they'll be able to take. So yeah, I think you're going to see a decent amount of people take off on that a higher age end. You'll see others though be willing to do it too. I mean, they're going to get a decent income, and plus, at least at present, unless we can reform things, hey, they'll go work for a federal contractor, which a lot of them do when they retire anyway. So yeah, I'm hopeful that that'll turn a lot of people away from the federal bureaucracy. It'll be a good first step. then when Russ Vought comes in, there's still a Schedule F issue where they can redefine a lot more employees beyond just the mere political ones that they can take out of federal service as well. So there's a lot more to come. There are going to be legal issues around it. But Donald Trump's winning this debate right now. He's taking all the right steps, and he's doing it quickly enough at the front end of his administration so that this can weed out in a positive rather than a negative fashion later on as the 4 years roll out. So I can't be more encouraged. Donald Trump couldn't be doing better, in my opinion, than he is right now, and he's handling the pressure well. So it's really excellent.
I think you're right. Visually, it's the Ron Paul meme. It's happening. Jim Pfaff, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chanel.
Coming up, we are making artful language great again with Vish Burra. Stick around for our word of the day. Up next.